In the past few weeks, my channel has focused on more harmonious and peaceful content, and to be honest, I've had enough of it, and I want to inject some straight up hellfire into my life that will only result in bitterness and anger. But just how am I going to do that? Well, I've decided in my undying wisdom to rank Oasis's albums from worst to best, as these videos only ever seem to bring about the strongest of opinions in the comments. So far we've had the Arctic Monkeys, humbug extremists, the string of Strokes fans that can't comprehend the fact I don't like Room on Fire that much, and the 17-year-old 1975 stans who still haven't made it past their debut album yet. So I'm incredibly confident ranking Oasis albums can only go wrong. But as a note, we're only going for the main 7 studio albums. That means no compilation albums, so sorry to the Master Plan fans, it won't be on this list. Well, are you ready? Me neither. Let's go. Coming in at the bottom of the list in 7th place is Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. Whilst I think overall this album is kind of fine, it doesn't particularly click well with me, as the first half sounds a bit like Oasis performing in the style of the Stone Roses. And whilst I love the Stone Roses, and I love Oasis, I don't really enjoy Oasis trying to sound like the Stone Roses. But realistically, I don't have any major objections to this album. It just doesn't grate my cheese. At number 6 is Dig Out Your Soul. Now, Dig Out Your Soul is the last full studio album that Oasis released before their all-time falling out. And it seems to be their last album, unless there's a naughty little cheeky spicy reunion on the way. But generally I feel this album is okay and trundles along pretty nicely. It's got songs that I do enjoy, but I wouldn't particularly state that any of them are my favourites. It's an album that I don't mind having on in the background if I want to listen to Oasis, but I'm not being too precious about wanting to hear any specific songs. In 5th place, we have Don't Believe the Truth. Now, much of this album falls similarly into the same reason why I enjoy Dig Out Your Soul. It's basically full of decent Oasis tunes that I can trundle through in the background. But unlike Dig Your Soul Out, Don't Believe the Truth has this cheeky little banger locked away in the form of The Importance of Being Idle. Interestingly enough, I think it was one of the really early indicators of the style of music Noel produces with his High Flying Birds. And to be honest, if it was released on his new solo albums today, I think it would still fit right in line. Overall though, Don't Believe the Truth is a steady album with the shining jewel of The Importance of Being Idle. Now in 4th place we have Heathen Chemistry. Heathen Chemistry is one of those albums which I think, and prepare to be insulted if you love all of this album, but is one of those albums that I think gets absolutely carried by Stop Crying Your Heart Out, which in fairness to me is one of Oasis's all-time great tunes, quite possibly being in my top 5 Oasis songs. I mean, if the album was only that song, it would probably still be sat in 4th place. But the great thing with this album is it's still peppered with other good songs along the way, such as Songbird and Little by Little. Now, moving into the top 3 and in 3rd place, you could probably guess what it's going to be at this point. In 3rd place for me is Be Here Now. Be Here Now is an album that still manages to capture that early Oasis spirit, but the issue with it is it has this slightly extra layer of production that maybe in some cases tames down the rawness of the first 2 albums which we loved, and I think in certain areas it does the record a little injustice. But despite that, there's still highlight after highlight on this album, starting off with the absolute marathon of an opener, Do You Know What I Mean? And the album also contains one of my favourite Oasis songs, Stand By Me. I'll always remember seeing a video of Stand By Me being performed at Wembley in 2000, with Liam Gallagher going full John Lennon tribute act with his outfit. It's linked in the description below if you want to take a nice trip down memory lane. For me, Be Here Now is easily above the albums already mentioned on this list, but it's still easily below their debut and follow-up album, so it sits pretty happily at 3rd place for me. Now, finally, we arrive at the big boy decision to separate the men from the boys. Being realistic, it was always going to come down to Definitely Maybe and What's the Story Morning Glory for 1st and 2nd place. But how on earth do we separate these? Well, maybe it's easier to show you then talk about them both at the same time. I've decided to stick my neck out for the video and state that in 2nd place, we have What's the Story Morning Glory, and in 1st place, we have Definitely Maybe. To be completely honest, it's hard to separate these albums, and most of the time, I'd probably say they're on par. But unfortunately, we're not sat in a pub chatting madness, you sat watching my video, so I had to make a decision. If we take an objective point of view, What's the Story has Oasis's biggest hitters, and reflects a bit more experience in the songwriting compared to Definitely Maybe, which is a natural progression as it is their 2nd album. I mean, we have Don't Look Back in Anger and Wonderwall on the album, which is the band's most iconic songs. There's also a string of outstanding tunes on the album through Roll With It, She's Electric, Morning Glory, and the absolute behemoth of Champagne Supernova. And I think it's fair to say that the songs on What's the Story are probably a bit better than Definitely Maybe. But personally for me, I can't explain the feeling I get when I start their debut album and I hear those opening guitar notes of Rock and Roll Star, and I get flashbacks to every festival I've been at. Or the experience of listening to Forever, the first song I learned on guitar when I was about 8. Or absolutely screaming Give Me Gin and Tonic in a random pub somewhere when they stick on Supersonic. Or the way the progression of Slide Away hits. Something about Definitely Maybe induces more of an emotional and memorable reaction, and I feel more connected for the songs for some reason. Maybe it's the innocence of the album, or the blind confidence that seems to come from Oasis on the record. Or maybe it's the fact it's probably one of the greatest debut albums of all time and always will be. I think that's why when we try and split the two albums apart, the only thing I can decide on is that I feel more connected to Definitely Maybe. Well, there we have it, my ranking of Oasis albums. Definitely Maybe is the best album by Oasis. Feel free to list your order in the comments or just to absolutely rage at me for misordering their albums. Overall, Oasis are northern legends and one of the greatest bands of all time. And all I can say to anyone who disagrees is simply... Feel free to like and subscribe if you're new here. And on that note, I think I'll say ta-ra for now, and I'll see you later.